On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Central European University, and as Provost and Academic Prorector of the University, it is my privilege to convene the opening ceremony of Central European University's 23rd academic year. In addition to our students, faculty, and staff, we are honored by the presence of a number of distinguished guests today. Your Excellency, Mr. Rector, representatives from several embassies and educational and cultural institutions, and finally, from our Board of Trustees, Cathy Martin, a most cordial welcome to all of you. I would also like to recognize the recipient of the Second European Award for Excellence in Teaching in the Social Sciences and Humanities, Professor Matthew Brown. No tribute to the exceptional history and success of CEU could be complete without mentioning its founder, George Soros, whose far-reaching vision and continuing support have been critical in forming this unique university. I would like to formally recognize and thank the wonderful faculty and staff of Central European University who share the responsibility for the extraordinary accomplishments that CEU has achieved over these past 22 years. The university could not have made such steady progress without the tremendous contribution of both its master's and doctoral students. We are very proud of the exceptional quality of their academic work, the significance of their professional achievements, and the noteworthy contributions that they make to the world community. We believe that these reflect the academic and life experience that they have had during their studies at CEU. We honor past and continuing students and welcome incoming students today. Your Excellency, honored guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, our ceremony will begin with the opening remarks by the President and Rector, John Shattuck. Professor Shattuck, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Provost. Cathy, thank you so much. This is a wonderful welcome to all of our new students, our new faculty, everyone who's returning, all of you who've managed to get into the auditorium today. I know this is a squeeze, but it's a very exciting one for all of us. I want to give special thanks to our hardworking and distinguished Provost, Cathy Martin, for all, I made you Provost. I'm between two extraordinary Kathys, so you can see there's a danger here. Cathy Farkas, who is the distinguished and hardworking Provost, and also Cathy Martin, who is a distinguished member of the CEU Board of Trustees, a human rights leader, and an author of great renown, who has been kind enough to join us here today and from whom you will hear later. In addition to those who were introduced by our Provost, I want to take special note of my friend, the Rector of the Music Academy, Andras Bata, who is here with us today. It's very good to have you, and also other representatives from the leadership of the community, including many who were unable to actually get in here, but who are very happily members of our community. I'm very pleased that we have two distinguished students from whom you'll hear shortly, a new student and an older student, a returning student, and a wonderful member of our faculty who will be introduced shortly, Tiana Kirstich, who is kindly going to represent the faculty. Let me just say a special word to all the new students who are here with us today. Let me tell you just a little bit about who you are, as I like to do at the beginning of our ceremony every year. There are 621 of you. You come from 81 countries. You are a very selective group. You were chosen from 4,119 applicants from 140 countries. There are 539 master's students and 882 doctoral students. And most interestingly, in a way, for me, is the fact that 64% of the students to whom CEU offered admission actually accepted our offer, which is a much higher percentage than all but a very few other universities, and an indication that you really wanted to come here and we really wanted to have you. So we should mutually congratulate ourselves, the new students and the university, for this remarkable percentage and the fact that you're all here with us today. Let me just, tiny word of advice. I give this every year. Those of you who are new, go out and get lost. It's not so difficult to do at CEU because this is a rabbit warren of buildings and places. You probably have already been lost at least once. But it's kind of a metaphor for CEU in a sense. You should go out and get lost and also find what you might find without, if you didn't get lost, which is finding people that you might not otherwise see, finding programs that you might not otherwise know about, and tasting and sampling the extraordinary range that we have at CEU of opportunities. Once you're lost, come back, be found again, enter your programs, and proceed. There are many things to celebrate here as we begin our new academic year, in addition to our new students and faculty. The opening of our School of Public Policy, which is a very exciting interdisciplinary program. CEU's great success this year in attracting the highest amount of competitive funding from the European Research Council of any university in Central and Eastern Europe. The fact that a number of parts of our university have received top international rankings from various rating agencies, and this includes, among others, political science, philosophy, international relations, sociology, and business. And then a special fact that I want to note here. This year, we have a record number of students entering the university who were supported entirely by scholarships that were funded by our alumni. 22 alumni scholarships have been raised. The funding has been provided by our alumni, which I think shows how loyal CEU alumni are once they leave. I could go on and on. So you can see that you are entering a great university of which we are all justly proud. And it's a university with a very distinctive mission, as you know, and a profile as one of the most densely international academic communities in the world. This is one of the rich qualities of CEU that you've no doubt already discovered. Those of you who are new and those of us who are here all the time celebrate this every day. Now let me challenge you a bit, just for a moment, by asking exactly what is a university? What is this thing that we have come together to be around? Of course, it's a community of scholars and teachers and students. It's fragile, but it's actually a remarkably durable concept. It's actually, as it turns out, has gone on for centuries. A doctoral student once did research on what had happened to 16th century institutions that were founded in Europe in the 16th century. Most of them, of course, had vanished. A handful of them survived. All but a few of that handful were universities. That's a remarkable fact of durability, even though fragility is part of what we are about. But universities have had to respond to radical changes over the centuries, revolutions, transformative inventions from the printing press to the internet, destructive ideologies like fascism and communism, and now more complex changes like unregulated market economics and globalization and the forces that those have unleashed. And in responding to these changes, there are really three categories of universities. Many universities simply reflect what's going on around them. What's happening in the society can actually be seen very clearly in the universities. Some become, unfortunately, apologists for some of the negative trends that are going on around, particularly repressive regimes in countries from which many of our students come, which is why they probably come to our university.
And some stand up for true academic freedom and take risks in doing so. That's what I hope CEU is all about, and I think we have every reason to believe that it is what we're about. We were founded to revive and promote open society in the only part of the world that had been dominated successively by fascists and communists. Many changes have happened since then, some of them good, some of them not so good. The early transition to democracy, the market economic developments, the beginnings of the European integration. But then came the economic crisis, and the crisis that has affected so much of what's going on today. And frankly, it's been accompanied also in some places by a search for what and whom to blame for this crisis, which brings echoes of the 1930s in some places. New forms of xenophobia and racism and extreme nationalism have unfortunately emerged. I'm not here to analyze any of that, but I'm to say that the bottom line is that CEU's original open society vision and mission is more important and more contested today than ever. I think our task as a community of scholars is to teach and study and learn and research the true meaning of freedom in all of its many manifestations, intellectual, cultural, social, political, scientific, with all of its advantages and downsides for both individuals and for societies. That's what we do. No matter what field or discipline you're in, critical thinking is at the heart of how we teach and learn at CEU. This means taking intellectual risks, questioning conventional wisdom, thinking outside of the box. Freedom at CEU means an academic environment in which you can challenge each other and challenge your professors. My best student last year challenged me in my class on international relations and human rights. The subject was Syria. It seems to me rather relevant today. We were involved in role playing. I decided to have my students, and any of you who take my class will find this, to play the roles of various world leaders, particularly in this case in the United States. And this student was asked to be the US Secretary of State. He developed an elaborate peace plan, which didn't reflect in any way the US position, in which Russia was to give up support for the Assad regime in exchange for the US giving up support for the opposition. My student was a Russian, and I gave him the top grade in the class. That's a hint. As we challenge each other, CEU also needs to challenge itself. And we become more global, we need to expand our vision beyond Central Europe. Being in Budapest, I think, makes this a very wonderful crossroads university, but we need to reinforce our founding vision as an experimental university by developing, as we are, partnerships with other universities, just as the International Relations Department has launched a successful venture with Korean universities funded by the Korea Foundation, just as other parts of CEU are conducting joint programs with other universities in Europe and North America. The Public Policy School is starting with a global perspective, and the Business School is focusing on markets and transitional economies. The final point I will make is that as we expand our vision, we need also to invest in new information technologies, not so new anymore. We need greater investment because these are changing the way universities are organized and how students are educated. CEU should be as forward-looking in our use of technology as we are experimental in our curriculum, our teaching, our research, and our partnerships. So I welcome you all to this great university. You are what makes it great, even if you, as all of us do from time to time, are wondering, what exactly am I doing here? Do I belong here? Can I make the grade? Well, I can tell you, you will do very well if you work hard, you take intellectual risks, you challenge yourselves, and you challenge each other. And finally, and I end with this point, along the way, don't forget to have fun. Because Budapest is a wonderful place, this university and all of the people in it are wonderful people. Enjoy this extraordinary moment in your lives when you are learning how to follow your dreams, and if you get it right, how to save the world. Thank you.
It is a privilege to have one of the members of CEU's Board of Trustees with us today, who is a fellow Cotti, as you heard. It's a great pleasure to introduce Cotti Martin.
Thank you, Cotti. John, you got me a little bit excited. I thought you were giving me a real promotion. My lifelong dream to be a provost for 30 seconds. It's wonderful to look out at all of you representing every corner of the planet. Welcome to the most exciting years of your life. How I envy you. I'd like to start all over right here in CEU's unique international atmosphere, George Soros's most successful experiment in human engineering. I hope it changes you. Let it change you. Be fearless in pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. Attack subjects that you have never attacked before, and people too. Maybe you shouldn't attack people, but you should definitely forge friendships which will last a lifetime. And given that your fellow students represent nearly 100 countries, you will have, this will form the core network of your life, which means that you will have friends in pretty much every country on every continent, which puts you so far ahead of the game, no matter what you do. I can't tell you how exciting it is just to see all of you. I grew up in this city. And I must tell you, it was a different place then. This was during the Cold War. I am a child of the Cold War. And in those days, you would get in trouble if you were seen speaking to someone from what was called the West, the world beyond the Iron Curtain. And indeed, my parents, who were journalists working for American news organizations, were jailed for that crime of working to tell the story of Hungary to the rest of the world. What a different world you are facing here today. I just said to John, I'd like to start all over and be sitting there with you. I want to give you just a couple. I know you're getting a whole lot of advice, but I just want to add to your list of advice and just a few things that I sort of wish that somebody had told me when I was starting off at university in the United States. Your teachers might not like this, but don't keep your noses in your books, and don't keep your noses, above all, in your laptops. The real world is so much more interesting. We're all swimming in information, data, but don't mistake information for knowledge. Knowledge you will get from the extraordinary teachers that you are about to meet, and from your amazing classmates. It is in that human exchange that you will find knowledge, not on the internet, in my view. Something else that I wish somebody would have told me, and that is that this is the only time in your life when it's okay to be entirely self-centered. That your job right now is self-cultivation. So go for it, and you will never again have so little concern with other things beyond yourself. So this is a remarkable time in your life. You are also living in a city that absolutely reeks of history. Budapest, Hungary have more layers of history than an onion. Peel them back, walk these streets, and understand all the layers of civilization that have preceded the city that you see today, from the Ottomans, who you will encounter if you like to swim, because all these wonderful baths around the city. I was at one earlier today, the Rudas, And another one I recommend is the Lukács, where I learned to swim. That is the legacy of the Turks, the Ottoman occupation. The Habsburgs also left a few things, not as important as the swimming pools. And at least important, in my view, was the Soviet occupation. There's only one, in terms of altering the landscape, there are only, I think, 2 Soviet memorials, and one of them actually both of them they erected for themselves. One is at the top of the Gellert with the lady holding the olive branch, and the other one is on Freedom Square. I don't want to knock the Soviet occupation because the Russians are now our friends and they're trying to help us out of the mess in Syria. So I'm all for détente with the former occupiers. But the city is worth knowing and exploring, and its sights and smells and its people are part of the unique experience that you are going to have. Don't pretend that the city is just a backdrop, a stage set for your campus life. Trust me, you're not in Kansas anymore. I believe that for me, the greatest gift in my current life is my association with Central European University, for which I thank John. And even though he hasn't made me provost yet, it is wonderful for me as a Hungarian who has made her life in America to have this opportunity really at a second life in Budapest, and that second life is really centered around this extraordinary institution. And this was a city that was closed to the world when I was a little girl, and now of course it's an open city, and you all, how many of you are there in this room? Several hundred, I think. You will be Budapest's envoys to the world. You will be Hungary's finest exports, and I am so excited about what lies ahead for you in the years ahead. And I hope that I have a chance to meet as many of you as possible. And if any of you have any questions or I've given you a few pieces of advice, but I have much more to give. Advice that my children no longer pay attention to, but I would love to fill your heads with advice. So go out there and have a great life in Budapest, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Conte. And now, following university tradition, 2 CEU students will address our gathering. First, a continuing student and then a new student. Please first welcome Yaroslav Miller from the Ukraine, who is a second-year student of the Economic Policy and Global Markets Master's Program at the Department of Economics. Yaroslav.
Thank you very much. Dear CEU faculty, CEU guests, and students, this is a great honor for me to have an opportunity to welcome new CEU students and share my experience with them. As you have just heard, my name is Yaroslav. I'm from Ukraine and a currently second-year student in Economic Policy in Global Markets program. I believe that all of you are coming from different environments and possess different backgrounds. Moreover, there is a great chance that some of you already have a master's degree or an experience of education abroad. Therefore, for me, it is very difficult to convey a message that would be equally relevant and interesting for all of you. Nevertheless, I would like to share 3 hints that I believe will make your next year at CEU truly remarkable. Firstly, although all CEU courses are challenging and demanding, you're not here only to study. You're here have a perfect environment to learn about yourself. You can develop your skills, find new interests, acquire new hobbies, To do so, you just need to join any of the clubs or found your own. Meanwhile, CEU professors will make sure that you will not only expand your intellectual capacity, but being an economist, I can afford saying that, but your marginal productivity as well. Therefore, I believe that that CEU is the perfect place where everybody has all opportunities and stimulus to grow personally day after day. Secondly, CEU courses still are not the only source of your new knowledge here. Look around, CEU is a diverse, yet very friendly environment. There is definitely someone who shares your interests and hobbies. I strongly encourage you to meet new friends, learn about their countries, learn about their cultures, discuss their opinions every single day. In my opinion, CEU is the place where everybody can evolve from Hungarians, Germans, Russians, or Ukrainians into the citizens of the world. Don't miss that chance. And finally, if you go to the number 11 building, at the ground floor you can find a quiet lounge where you can have a short sleep between your lectures. It was very helpful for me next year. Welcome and good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yaroslav. Our next speaker is a student who is starting a new program this year. Isabel Patkovsky comes from the United States, and she's enrolled in the one-year MA program in the philosophy department. Isabel.
Hi, my name is Isabel, and I'm a new student here in the philosophy department. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, but most of my family lives in the UK, and I went to college in England. So, like some other people here, I've had past experience studying and living abroad. But I've quickly realized that CEU is going to be very different than college was. When I first arrived in England, I was taken to this international students orientation, and they gave us some advice on how to interact with our British classmates. There are two main things that I remember. First, I was told if I ran out of conversation topics to default to talking about the weather. And second, I was told never to stand too close to an English person. Aside from being really terrible advice for making friends, it also made you immediately divide the student body into two. So you had the regular students and the international students. And CEU is nothing like that. It's so gratifying to be in an environment that is really, truly international. Academically, philosophy departments can be known for getting pretty dogmatic about which style or manner they favor. But right away here, it's become apparent that all of us in the incoming class are coming from completely different backgrounds, both geographical and theoretical, and that we have a huge amount to learn from each other. I wanted to come to CEU because I wanted to study philosophy in a diverse environment with a commitment to exchanging and challenging each other's ideas. I'm personally very interested in philosophy of mind and ethics, both of which I think are branches where wide-ranging theoretical and cultural approaches are extremely important. Finally, CEU already seems to me like a place where, as a new friend I spoke to on last weekend's hiking trip said, everyone is really just here because they want to learn. I'm honored to be among so many people with such a passion for learning about their subjects and each other, and I can't wait to see what the year brings. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor Tiana Kristet, who is an associate professor in the Medieval Studies Department. She's representing our faculty. Tiana.
Thank you very much. Dear President, distinguished member of the board, provost, guests, colleagues and students, inspired by the next order of business in the ceremony that has to do with teaching, I would like to share with you some personal insights into what it means to teach in a graduate-only institution like CEU, particularly in the field of humanities. Now, before coming to CEU 4 years ago, I worked at a large university in the US, teaching history of the Ottoman Empire and the Middle East to undergraduate students. In light of the events of the last decade, teaching Middle Eastern history to American undergraduates was not only a rewarding experience, but a great responsibility as well. However, for all the challenges and excitement of teaching a subject of such relevance not only to the students' daily life, for many of my students were actually in the Reserve Officers Training Corps, and to their future, which was often described as mortgaged by the US entanglement in the Middle East. For me personally, it could not compare to a cause much closer to my heart, that of teaching history to the students, many of whom come from the countries that emerged from the territories once encompassed by the Ottoman Empire, and that are still, in many respects, dealing with this legacy. This prospect of tackling the ghosts of the past closer to home and teaching at a graduate level was what led me here. It was not to jump into an unknown. As a native of Serbia and graduate of the American University in Bulgaria, which is an undergraduate institution with a mission similar to that of CEU, I had been aware of CEU since the 1990s, and even once upon a time applied to an MA program in medieval studies, the program where I actually teach right now. Many of my close college friends graduated from CEU and went on to do things that combine academic excellence and social relevance in exemplary ways, building on what they took from here. For many people of my generation from Southeast, Central, and Eastern Europe, CEU was a major guiding star in the moral and intellectual universe that we hope to explore and conquer. Now, more than 20 years after its foundation, CEU's impact is becoming more global, as is evidenced by all the countries that you come from. And it has evolved into a cosmopolitan research institution that is rooted in the region but has global horizons, and that remains faithful to its founding mission to promote humanities and social sciences as a way of opening minds, encouraging critical thinking, and fostering empathy with others. Today, as we are witnessing budget cuts to programs and research funding in humanities across the world, and erosion of the belief that humanities can effectively teach ethical behavior, the importance of CEU's mission is more relevant than ever. Moreover, by encouraging and giving tools to the graduates from the departments like gender studies, medieval studies, philosophy, or history, to explore non-academic careers and conceptualize projects that transcend disciplinary boundaries, CEU is also contributing to making the background in humanities an in-demand qualification for various professions that have traditionally looked elsewhere for recruitment. Now, while we as faculty commit ourselves to help you explore those alternative paths beyond the academia and guide you towards projects that are relevant both in the context of your field and society in general, we also do not want to overemphasize instrumentalism that underlies the recent turn away from the humanist curriculum and fixation on a practical, utilitarian education. The key challenge many of you will experience as students at CEU will be to resolve in the context of your own projects this tension between, on the one hand, the demand on the humanities to justify themselves, and on the other, doing research for the sake of simply finding out new things, the utility of which is not immediately clear. As those of you who do end up going into academia will find out, not all teaching jobs are created equal. In some cases, you can finish up teaching your day, go home, and forget about anything that has to do with scholarship. However, teaching at CEU, one of those rare graduate-only institutions in the world, is nothing like it. It's much more an all-consuming, intensive experience that at times borders on schizophrenia, because you come to inhabit simultaneously in several mental worlds, your own and those of your MA and PhD students, whose topics and bibliographies you end up dreaming and thinking about. Supervision at CEU does not mean only that we read your thesis once you're done with them. We suffer through the whole process with you, which means that June is a very difficult month for everybody at this university, and which is why I suspect we have a limit of maximum 6 PhD supervisees. Indeed, much more than any institution I ever studied or worked at, CEU fosters empathy with students and an all-encompassing sense of investment in their success. The intensity of the classroom interaction often adds to this feeling of living in a CEU bubble. After particularly intensive seminar discussions, it would take me often hours to unwind, thinking and replaying in my head, contemplating how the conversations in the classroom made me reconsider some of the ideas that I had on the subject. The freedom that we as faculty at CEU have to conceptualize and offer classes closely related to our subject of research, sometimes completely new topics that we are only embarking on, is particularly enriching, as teaching forces us to explain not only to ourselves but to you what we actually mean in the clearest possible way. So just as professors are drawn into students' research Students very much contribute to faculty's projects, sometimes simply by asking particularly acute questions, and sometimes by becoming actual associate researchers. In other words, as you start your studies at CEU, keep in mind that we are not here only to help change your mind. We are very much looking forward to being changed by you. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Tiana. Now I'd like to call upon President and Rector John Shattuck to present the European Award for Teaching Excellence in the Social Sciences and Humanities.
So this is a very wonderful part of our opening day ceremony because I think in many ways it symbolizes another unique aspect of CEU. You've heard many of them already. But I think what we do here is to emphasize now, above all, teaching as well as research. The balance between the two is a very central part of CEU's pedagogical approach. Even as has been pointed out, there is a constant pressure outside for a more utilitarian work in the research field in order to promote development and economic activity in many countries and the like. CEU is in fact trying very hard to maintain, and I think this, what I'm about to present, the award that I will present, is an example of how we are maintaining and even enhancing excellence in teaching. The basic interaction between faculty and students that leads to the kind of education that we specialize in here, where we as faculty learn as much from students as Tiana has just, as Professor Krstic has just said. So just a little background on this award. The award, the European Award for Excellence in Teaching, was devised at the 20th anniversary of CEU 3 years ago. And it is a European-wide award, and you may ask, why is it that CEU is in fact offering an award across Europe? And the answer is that no other award of this kind that we're aware of exists in Europe. And so in a sense it fills a very important void. It's an award for teaching excellence in teaching in social sciences and humanities in any university in Europe. This year we had an increasing number of candidates who were nominated, and we have a very distinguished selection committee headed by Professor Patricia Alberg-Graham, who's the Charles Warren Professor of History and of American Education at Harvard University, and a CEU trustee, and then a number of other distinguished members of that selection committee. So it is really a great pleasure to award the second annual European Award for Excellence in Teaching this year. And we're going to be awarding this to Professor Matthew Bram from the Department of Philosophy at the University of Bayreuth in Germany. Professor Bram holds the chair of political philosophy in the Department of Philosophy at the University of Bayreuth. His teaching and research explore issues in the intersection of political philosophy, welfare economics, and ethics, in a sense illustrating the two student presentations that you heard so wonderfully a few minutes ago. An economist and a philosopher, Professor Bram combines these fields and helps us explore them in unique ways together. He received his PhD from the Faculty of Economics at the University of Hamburg in 2004, a Master's in Science degree in Economic and Social History with distinction at the University of Oxford, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Human Sciences at the University College in London. Let me quote, in presenting the award to Professor Graham, let me quote three authorities here. First and foremost is the authority of the award committee, which wants to provide the following citation to indicate why it is awarding this wonderful award to Professor Bram. And I quote, "The selection committee chaired by Patricia Graham, professor of Harvard University, was greatly impressed by your overall achievements, your philosophy of education, and creative problem-based approaches to teaching, effective integration of research and teaching, and your leadership in interdisciplinary teaching. A student who is always the best source of evaluation of teaching, as we all know. One of his students says, not only did his creative and demanding seminars challenge us intellectually, he also empowered us through his sincere evaluation of our contributions. Matthew Bram takes a genuine interest in his students. And finally, a colleague who says, I once asked Matthew how he motivates himself to prepare for the amount of courses he has to teach as a full professor in Germany. His answer was unexpected, yet insightful. He said that he does not see teaching preparation as a burden, but rather as an excellent opportunity to re-educate himself and discover new aspects for the classroom discussion. This answer had a deep impact on me. So, Professor Graham, if you would please come forward.
Thank you. It's very, very moving. I didn't realize how moving it was going to be, so I had to collect myself for a moment, and particularly to hear those words from not only from students but colleagues as well. I've got 3 minutes, and this is something that's been, or 2 to 3 minutes, something been imposed on me without them knowing that I do this to others. In seminars, professional seminars and students, I say 3 minutes, or 45 seconds, and that's it. So let me first of all say the usual thanks. And I give them very broadly. Being born in Canada and lived there for 7 years, the Canadian educational system has had some effect, obviously. I can't remember how much, but it has some. Then there's something typically British about me. I grew up in England, had my schooling and university education in England, but I had difficulties with the island and found that there was a much larger world outside of the British Empire. Everything else that's been said about here, about the CEU, makes me already feel that when I leave tomorrow, I'm no longer at home. Everything about the CEU is everything I actually feel academically represents my aims. But let me say, in the 2 minutes that I've got left, how to change the world. Not with guns, not with business, but something much more powerful, and I think that's what motivates me. Because it changes our lives sustainably, and that is good teaching. And that's what is meant, I think, in this quote from my colleague. The award indicates, and that's a commitment on behalf of the CEU, and that's, for me, it's impressive to know and to become aware of this. A commitment to not only the value of teaching, but the underlying values that good teaching is based upon, which is autonomy, respect, self-determination, and creativity. So I take this award as evidence that somehow I've recognized some certain values and have tried to put them into practice. But I also take the award as recognition of an important motivation of my work, which I would also like to express here for future teachers, public service. The beauty of teaching is that once we close the door in the seminar room, all ideas of self-interest dissolve. There's nothing more joyful than the teaching and learning experience. And that, I cannot say, could be overestimated, and again I take the award as a recognition of that particular value on the part of the Central European University. So let me just say that we can actually not save the world, but actually create a better world with this very, very fundamental piece of human technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Graham. And we now conclude the opening ceremony for CEU's 23rd academic year. I would like to extend a warm invitation to everyone here, all faculty, students, other guests, to join us at the reception in the ground floor of the 913 building. And the only thing that is left to me is, on behalf of the university's governance and the faculty, to wish you a very, very enjoyable and fruitful year.